All right. So, what I want to talk to you guys today about is blood sugar spikes. You hear all this negative connotation about blood sugar this, blood sugar that. I even seen a commercial on TV the other day, and it was talking about this certain kind of protein shake that you can buy from Walmart that gives you a gentle spike, and then a gentle is just, it was a dumb, right? But you hear a lot about this stuff and you don't really know what's the truth. Is it good? Is it bad? Do we need good? Do we need the bad? Let's dive into it. So, again, blood sugar spikes, they often get demonized, but the reality is that they're not all inherently bad. And it all depends on when they happen, how often and what your body does with that spike. So understanding when blood sugar spikes work in your favor versus when they work against you, this can make a pretty massive difference in energy levels, fat loss, muscle growth, overall health, and further knowing this knowledge can help you mitigate some of these negative issues that you may experience when your blood sugar spikes, and it's not a good time for that to happen. So let's dive into the positive. When is a blood sugar spike a good thing? So first off, a blood sugar spike, it happens naturally after eating carbohydrates. Your body breaks down the carbs into glucose, which then enters the bloodstream, and then it signals a release of insulin, which you guys all know is a hormone that helps shuttle that glucose into the cells for energy or storage. Now, these spikes, they can be beneficial if they occur at the right time, right, and for the right reasons. So, um, before or after a workout is a good time for these spikes to happen. Pre-workout, a moderate blood sugar spike from the carbs that you just ate can give you a quick, usable energy source to sustain, a strength training session or a high intensity exercise interval session, things like that. And then if we're looking at post-workout, obviously after training, your body is primed to absorb a ton of nutrients, and that spike at this time is going to help replenish these muscle glycogen stores that you just used up in order to aid in recovery. Now, one big thing that I like to do, especially for more um, muscle bound, muscle driven individuals, is pair fats with carbohydrates. Like pre and post training. You've always heard, and I was a believer of this a long time ago, that you don't want any fats pre or post training because it slows digestion down, right? You guys have probably all heard that. But I mean, there is some truth to that, right? But it depends on, it's just like everything else. The poison is in the dose, right? Too much fat is for sure not going to be a good thing, but a little bit of fat might be helpful. And why this is helpful is, I mean, just by adding healthy fats like avocados, nuts, avocado oil, healthy fats, right? Um, into a carb-rich meal. I'm not going to say only pre and post training, but the majority of the times is when I like to do this. But nonetheless, these can effectively help control a large spike by slowing down the digestion and the absorption of those carbohydrates, resulting in a gradual. It's going to give you more of a gradual release of that glycogen into the bloodstream instead of just a big surge and then a crash, right? So instead of it going up and then coming down, it's going to slowly go up and then slowly come down, right? So more of a gentle curve instead of start up and down. I mean, because once it spikes, I mean, if it doesn't have anything else in there, it's just going to come crashing right back down. But if it's got those fast to kind of slow things down, it's going to go up and then it's going to slowly taper off, right? Now, another instance is in the morning. This is if your blood sugar is controlled. So upon waking up, your cortisol levels are going to be naturally higher. This is what wakes you up in the morning is your cortisol levels. Um, this is what helps you feel alert, gives you energy. For the majority of folks, let's just say an average human, that two or three in the morning time where you might wake up or you might wake up to use the bathroom or something like that, right? That's when that cortisol levels are peaking, and then they're starting to come down. So that's kind of gives your body that kind of a heads up. So hey, we're going to be waking up in 3 or 4 hours, right? This is our gradual. decrease from here. Um, and then again, if we're focusing on in the morning, how obviously having a balanced meal with protein, healthy fats, and a good bit of fiber too can actually help stabilize that blood sugar and provide good, stable and sustainable energy throughout the morning. Now, if we're talking about during exercise, now if you're training hard to the point to where you're hitting failure, you're actually getting after it, right? Um, these quick digesting carbs can be helpful to sustain performance, and that's basically just by keeping your blood sugar stable, right? So if you ate a good pre-workout meal, but if you're going into the gym and you're feeling lightheaded, maybe halfway through it, or you're just crashing, burning, now granted, this is aside from taking a pre-workout and your energy levels just crash, right? That's beyond the fact, but if you can take some carbohydrates during training, if it's in your plan, right? And I'm not saying any of this for you guys to go start doing your own stuff in your own plan. This is just information, right? I just want to throw that out there. But those intra workout carbs can help keep that crash from occurring in the middle of your workout. It pretty much it delays it, right, to where that crash isn't happening halfway through your workout and you feel awful and you have to go home because you're tired or you got lightheaded, whatever. Now, if we dive into when is it a bad thing? So frequent, excessive, or honestly just poorly timed blood sugar spikes can lead to a bunch of different things. The biggest one is energy crashes. So a rapid rise in blood sugar often leads to an equally fast drop. Like I said, if it goes up, it's going to come right back down if there's no fats accompanying it, right? This is going to leave you feeling tired, sluggish, craving a lot of bad food more than likely. And this crash, it essentially happens just if you think about it logically, just because it removes glucose too quickly, right? And it's going to leave you with low blood sugar, which AKA means you just went hypo or hypoglycemia. So again, it goes up and it comes right back down because it spikes it all the way up. It takes a lot of it, and then once it's done, there's no gradual decrease. It's just going to drop straight back down. Um, but when these blood sugar spikes are again timed poorly, increased fat storage. If your body doesn't need the glucose for immediate energy, it's going to store the excess as body fat the majority of the time. Now, this happens typically when you're consuming high carb meals without exercise. That is why I'm a huge believer of putting 60 to 70% of your carbohydrates on the day pre and post training. I mean, if you're training at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you're putting 40 to 50% of your carbs at your meal before bed, that's dumb. You should use the majority of those carbohydrates around your training so your body can actually utilize them instead of just being stored, right? So we always want to try now granted, there are obviously exceptions to everything, but the majority of your carbohydrates should be going around training, just for this instance here. Um, a blood sugar spike and crash is going to lead to more cravings, more hunger, potentially binge eating episodes. These blood sugar swings up and down. They can just spiral out of control. Is the easiest way to say it. Again, binge eating is a big issue. The issue there, and then it just turns to just having poor appetite control, and it's not necessarily your fault. Because you do have leptin and ghrelin, which is your hunger and your satiety hormones working against you, in this instance here, but trying to time those blood sugar spikes and crashes. I'm not going to say that is under your control because a lot of this is, but that'll help you on the back end. Now, something a little more deeper and in depth is the insulin resistance and then the long term health issues from these spikes at poor times. So, I mean, just having chronically elevated blood sugar is going to make your body, your cells specifically, less responsive to insulin, which is going to lead to insulin resistance, which is a precursor to type 2 diabetes. That is why I have you guys take the fasted blood glucose to get some people to take this. Now, granted, if you're new to the program and you haven't gotten it yet, I'm not speaking to you guys, but I've had some people in the program that just will not take it, and that's fine. It's not like it's a do or die thing, or I can't make changes if I don't have it. But if I'm seeing that, hey, your glucose levels are a lot higher than they should be, what's going on here? And if we can't nail it down as an overall thing, what I've done in the past is I've had some clients take a reading before they eat. So like let's just say somebody has 4 meals a day, right? And we're waking up with a very high fasted blood glucose number, and we can't seem to nail down what's causing that. One thing that I'll typically do is, let's just say if they have 4 meals a day, right? I'll say, all right, right before meal number one, take your glucose, write it down on a piece of paper. 90 minutes after that last bite, take it again. Write down that number and do that for every single meal. And we can say, okay, meal one had a lot of carbohydrates, not a ton of fat, right? That glucose spiked up, and since there's no fat, it fell right back down, right? The body used it. But let's just say if for meal three, the glucose spiked up, and then 90 minutes later, you read it again, and it's pretty much about the same thing, or just a bit lower, then we know maybe, hey, that meal might not be the best meal for your specific body, right? Not that you're doing anything wrong. It might either be a poor timing, it could be a variety of different things, but that's one way that we can use that glucose level to know how well the body is actually responding to food. I don't ask for that number just for the heck of asking it. It's it's pretty important to know how the body is actually using the food, right? So again, it helps. Um, and then just on the back end, just having high insulin levels in general is going to promote inflammation. And when you have inflammation in the body, you're making fat loss harder, um, and you're increasing health risk. And even going further in inflammation, just take alcohol for instance. Alcohol is a literal poison. When you drink poison, what's going to happen? Your body's going to be inflamed. It goes on high alert. It wants that alcohol out of its system, right? Well, now your body is inflamed, making fat loss harder. Not really harping on alcohol consumption, but just if you use that as an example as how destructive inflammation can be, then you'll maybe think twice about doing things that can cause inflammation, is the best way to put it. Now, are there any certain foods that can cause blood sugar spikes? Yeah, for sure. Certain foods are going to cause rapid blood sugar spikes, just due to their fast digestion and absorption rate. So mainly high glycemic, fast digesting carbs is what we're going to be looking at here. And I keep in mind, like I said, there are positive and there are negatives to, spikes and glucose spikes. So I'm not saying that these foods are bad. These foods just make it jump up, right? So obviously, refined sugars is going to be one that I would label bad in an essence. I mean, because that's like candy, soda, juices, but fruit juices can be a little skewed. If it's 100% juice with no additives, then it's fine, right? But other things like syrups and um, if you go to Walmart and get the cranberry mixed with pineapple juice and you look at all the ingredients, it's not just cranberry juice and pineapple juice. It's cranberry juice, pineapple juice, dextrose, cane sugar, it's a bunch of other stuff added to it. So in that instance, like that's when it's, I would say, quote unquote, bad. Then you move into like white bread, pastas like bagels, croissants, muffins, white rice, pasta. Um, mainly these two, the rice and the pasta, they lack fiber and they digest quickly. So that is why oftentimes I put white rice before a workout or after a workout because fast absorption rate, and it's going to get used quickly. And then like, sugary cereals, these are going to be packed with a lot of added fiber. So, I mean, there has been some times in the past to where I mean, a make or break scenario for a client was, hey, I gotta have my cinnamon toast crunch at least one time a day. Okay, cool. Like it's not optimal, but we can do it, right? If we're gonna have something like that, it's gotta be pre or post workout, just to have it incorporated, just so your body's gonna use it. Um, and then, I mean, and then a caveat to that is if you're not training hard enough, and I can see that through your training videos that you send me, then it probably, I'm not going to say, no, I will say it, you probably don't deserve it to have it in your plan. Just what it boils down to. If you're wanting to make a big change in your body, but you aren't willing to budge off of having cinnamon toast crunch, and then you're not training hard on top of it, then what are we really doing here, right? If we can show that we're training hard enough to utilize the food that we're putting in, sure, I'm all for it. But like I said, it's got to be utilized properly and with right timing, right? Um, and now, as far as how can we manage our blood sugar for just better health and better performance, right? Now, again, the goal is not to completely remove or avoid blood sugar spikes. I mean, it's going to happen regardless, but if we can control and time them properly, we can optimize energy, fat loss, muscle growth, all that good stuff. So again, going back to pairing carbs with healthy fats, you know, almond butter, nuts, avocados, oils, and macadamia nut oil, avocado oil. Again, this is going to slow that digestion rate down, reducing that spike and preventing those crashes. And if you just prioritize, fiber rich foods, whole grains and vegetables, all that stuff again slows digestion down and slows absorption down, keeping that blood sugar stable. And then timing your carbs around your post workout, pre and post workout. Again, that's a given. Just like we've already talked about. Um, stay active around eating time. So I'm a big believer of if you just ate a meal and you have the luxury to do so, go take a 5-10 minute walk. Walk to the mailbox. If you're at work, go take a bathroom break. Go walk across the campus to a spot 5 minutes away and then walk 5 minutes back, right? Just getting up and moving is going to help promote that digestion, which is going to help prevent those crazy out of control spikes up and down, right? And then again, this can twofold turn into improving that insulin sensitivity. If we can improve all of that stuff, more than likely your insulin sensitivity is just going to be improved, just as a trickle down effect from doing all of these things. So bottom line, with everything that I've said, blood sugar spikes are not the enemy, but they have to be used, or you have to try to keep them in a manner to where they're controlled and when they'll benefit you rather than just having them all throughout the day, having things elevated for long periods of time. Um, it's mainly going to lead to just poor timing and just poor food choices, just what it boils down to. Which again, on the back end, is going to lead to fat gain, low energy, and just long term health issues. So, really, that's all that I got as far as blood sugar goes. But Ren, what question do you got?
Just kind of a statement because I hadn't even thought about it until this topic today. But since we added in a little bit of almond butter to my pre-workout in the morning, um, I have not had a hypoglycemic event now that I think about it. And
Yep.
I've had to play around with it because with the amount of carbs I was stacking pre-workout, I had to like reduce that by like one scoop of carb of core. But yeah, like I hadn't even really thought about that until now. Like now it's been fine. Like I've had the energy. I haven't had any hypoglycemic events, and by reducing some of the carbs too, like I haven't been feeling sluggish either when I'm going into my workout. So it's kind of fascinating to think about.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times people, especially people who are using like intra shakes, like I use one. I've seen some people in the past that would say, "Oh, well, if you're taking 50 grams of a carb powder and you're feeling lightheaded during your session, well, you may need to up that to 75 or 100 grams." And it's like, no, you probably don't. You can. I mean, I've used upwards of 100 grams of carb powder in my training, but not for the reason of stopping hypoglycemia, they could have probably benefited, just like you said, from adding a little bit of almond butter or a little bit of avocado oil, something to that meal that would slow that down to the point where, hey, those extra 50 grams of carbohydrates probably wasn't needed. It's just, like you said, just slows it down. So,
Yeah, my pre-workout's about 140 grams of carbs, so it's I think probably more than enough there. I've been playing around with leaving the intra carb powder out as well, but just to see how that goes because it's been making me feel a little sluggish sometimes. But yeah,
yeah, I mean, my pre and post meal, and an intrashake combined is I couldn't tell you the exact amount of carbohydrates, but it's about 600 grams of rice, um, 2 cups of apple juice, and 2 bananas, and that's around training. So it's a ton of carbohydrates. And then in that pre meal, I do have a little bit of either avocado oil or almond butter as well too to help keep that stable, during the entire time. So. Anybody else got any questions or anything?
What's the kind of like timing or spacing between like pre and post workout that you typically place those meals within,
As far as
that makes
like after training or like before training?
sense. Yeah, so before and after, like
Okay.
how soon? Yeah.
I would say pre or really any of them. I would say pre is probably specifically at least 30 minutes, give or take, just to give your body a little bit of time to start digesting the food. Um, I would say mine's probably closer to an hour because I'll leave the house. It's a 30-minute drive to my gym. I'll, go to the bathroom, speak to people, hop on the treadmill for 20 minutes, and then I'll get started. So it's probably a good hour after my last bite of my pre-workout meal before I'm, training. And then, I don't have any issues there. But the biggest thing is that post-workout meal. I think a lot of people, they try to down the carbohydrates so they don't miss the anabolic window. And we now know that that's false. That's not even a real thing anymore. The biggest thing is your body was just in a fight or flight state. You just put it through hell, right? Going to failure, working out hard. Your body is in a fight or flight state. It's just is what it is. And when you get into those states, your body is not. Digestion is on the bottom of the list during that time. Your body is trying to survive, right? Digestion is not on the list. So once you get done with your workout, you're able to breathe and relax, and your heart rate is not so elevated, and things are finally coming down off of that off of that high from the workout, right? Which is typically 30 minutes to an hour. I would say is probably the best time to eat. I would say mine's probably an hour to an hour and a half. Just to get, again, I got a 30-minute drive, back to the house. And then, it takes me a little bit to get things settled, take a shower, things like that. So it's probably more or less like an hour for me. But I do know in the past, years ago, when I would have like cereal in the car waiting on me to, once I got in the car, driving home, I'd be eating, dry cereal on the way home. When I got home, my stomach was in knots. I just put a ton of sugar,
Mm.
a ton of processed refined sugar on my stomach, which is not doing any digestion at this point. And it's doing me no good. So again, just waiting a little bit is probably going to be the better route. Not as long, don't wait 3 or 4 hours, sure, but 30 minutes, hour and a half would probably be Now if you're on a time constraint and you have to eat right then and there, then that's fine. That's better than skipping it. But if you have the luxury, 30 minutes to 90 minutes, somewhere in there. So
Gotcha.
anybody else got anything? Chandler or Jay? I think Marcus said he had to run. So
For me,
do what?
I don't have anything.